Well, a very, very warm welcome to you guys. Hi, it's Cassim and welcome to another episode of Journal Entries. I want to firstly start off by thanking you so much for watching. I want to start off by saying thank you very much for spending the next kind of half an hour with me as I share with you my journal entries, and I hope that something that I share with you can help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. In case you've never watched journal entries before, let me give you a bit of an explanation. I started this series because I essentially wanted to inspire other men to identify their philosophies, their strategies, and their tactics. I wanted to help inspire other men to figure out for themselves what is success, what is the difference between good and bad. How do you become successful? What does a good life mean? What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? What role should a man play? What makes for a fruitful life? What makes for an abundant life? And I wanted to inspire other men to identify those, primarily because I believe that in order to have a remarkable life, and to say you've been a success, and to say you've lived an incredible life, you've got to have somebody behind you who can essentially carry on what you've learned, carry on your principles, use what you've taught them from and you've learned from your life, and allow them to use it so that they can elevate their life to heights that you yourself could never reach, to heights that you yourself could never even comprehend or ever dream of. And the reason why I say that is because I recognize that most people are not multimillionaires and have loads of money to give to people. Most people are not in positions of power where they're politicians or CEO and kind of maneuver people and help people get a ladder up. Most people don't have that influence or that position. But most people have experience and knowledge, and most people have acquired skills along the way that have been useful in order for them to reach the current level that they're at. And I say this because I believe that you don't have to necessarily be some person who is some CEO, some rich person. You can start mentoring and you can start leading and showing the people behind you how to reach new heights from any level, as long as you yourself have made some progress, some development in your life, or you've learned some kind of a lesson. So that's why I wanted to share this video series with you. And I've got 3 things that I want to share with you today that I hope add some value to your life and I hope can help you to become a higher, fuller expression of who you're capable of becoming. Those 3 things are this. Number 1, I want to talk to you about me making notes on the subject of you cannot beat your missus and call yourself a man. And that is what my friend said to me earlier on in the week. The second thing that I want to share with you is that you can't change what you are not aware of. And the third thing that I wanted to share with you is that I've moved away from trying to be right, and instead I'm moving closer to finding the truth. So those are the 3 things that I wanted to share with you. Let's get into it. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you today is that you cannot beat your missus and call yourself a man. So all of this week, I've been asking other males, other young people, other men, what it means to be a man. I've been asking guys, tell me in your definition, your words. This isn't a right or wrong answer. There is no kind of this isn't a test. This is just for me to gather information. Tell me in your opinion, if you saw a man and you were like, that right there is a man. I asked people, could you describe him to me? Tell me about why you believe this person is a man. And I had some really interesting answers to this question. But it seemed that there were the same common things and principles that everybody seemed to say. And I'm going to share what 4 of them were with you, because everybody said this, and this has been the catalyst for why I wanted to talk to you about this, because it actually caught me off guard, because I didn't realize the standard that we hold for what we call a man. It's been very interesting for me, which is part of the reason why I wanted to speak to other guys, because I wanted to know, is my idea of what I think a man How does that line up with other men? So let me tell you what men have told me all of this week, and I've literally asked loads and loads of, probably about 80 people. So this is what they've told me, and these are the common things that they've all said. So number one, they've said to me that a man needs to be both. Usually they say to me that a man needs to be strong. And so I would then say to them, what do you mean by a man needs to be strong? And then they would say to me, a man needs to be strong both mentally and physically. And then I would say, well, what do you mean by that? Why does a man have to be both strong mentally and physically? And that's why you've seen the title of today and the title of this session, which is that men have told me that you cannot be the kind of person who is successful in your business, who you call yourself a man and you have a family and you have everything, you have great friends, but when you go home you beat your wife. You can't call yourself a man if you do that. And I believe it was my friend Gary who put it like this, and I'm going to paraphrase what he said. He said, if you are successful but you beat your missus, it means you're strong physically but not strong mentally and emotionally. And I found that really interesting because I thought, right, okay, so Gary is essentially trying to say to me that there are loads of men who are strong physically, but mentally they're actually weak. And I would have thought that clearly, if you're like a bodybuilder, if you're hench, if you got like loads of big muscles, the presumption that I kind of made, and again, this is where I've made an erroneous sort of hypothesis, is that I kind of presumed you would be somebody who's honourable, you'd be somebody who's determined, you'd be somebody who is mentally strong. But actually, this is not true. Because many of you guys who are listening to me, you know people in your own lives who are actually buff, but they've got some really fucked up ideologies. The way they speak about women and how women are inferior to them, and the way they have no idea about equal pay. Like I was speaking to a guy and I was saying to him, you realise that the whole reason, we were talking about pay and why women fight so hard for, actually we were talking about feminism, and then feminism then led me to talking about, because he was like, I don't believe in this whole feminist and there's too many feminists, and I was like, I get what you're saying, but you have to see it from the point of view of, there are some people who feel that it's unfair that they do the same job as a man and they get paid less money. And he was like, do they? And I was like, come on, man. Don't be silly. Like, of course, you know that there's been a huge thing in the papers and all over the last few years about women doing the same job as a man and getting paid less money. And he was like, I didn't know that. And I thought, how can you live in a world today where you don't know that kind of information? And I found that really bizarre. But I realized, and this is what I guess think is I'm going to get to this actually in a different point, but I think part of living a really good life is that you have to really have an understanding of what is actually going on around you. But deeper than that is you have to have an understanding of what is going on in you, right? And that's why I'm going to talk in a moment about the importance of really figuring out who you are and what you stand for. Because if you have the mentality of Hitler but you're not aware of it, you will think that you're right. As a man, if you have the philosophy that women are inferior to you and you're not even aware of it, you will mistreat women and think that they're in the wrong and you're right and not even realise it. So that's the first thing that a lot of my friends said. The second thing that a lot of my mates said is that they said that the man needs to have a family, which was shocking. I didn't think that you would need to have a family in order to call yourself a man. But apparently, according to what you guys are telling me when I've asked you, and I mean, I've probably asked 80 people this question. I said, tell me what a man is. Apparently, according to you men, you say that in order to be a man, and this is huge, this shocked me. You say that a man needs to have a family. He needs to have a missus. He needs to have somebody to protect, which was not what I was expecting. I would have thought you would say a man needs to be a lad and he needs to be single, but apparently that's not true. What else did you say? You said that a man needs to work hard. This is a consistent one that everybody said, that the man needs to be somebody who works hard. The other one, and that I wanted to share with you, which is also very, very consistent, and it was always there in every single time, and it was probably usually the second thing that people said, was that a man needs to have honor and integrity. He needs to have values. He needs to have something that he stands for, something that he believes in, a code, principles. And I've got to tell you, obviously because of my job and what I do, I can tell you a lot of men don't fit that particular criteria. Because there's a lot of men who are guys who are successful and they've got banter, but honestly, they lack honor, they lack integrity. They do not have a code for which they live by. They don't have a code for or a set of things which they will not break under any circumstances. A lot of people don't have that. And that's not just males, I'm talking about females. There are, and so I would encourage you actually, and this is why I was thinking about it, because I was thinking about myself. I was thinking, Cassim, what is your code? What do you stand by? What will you do, irrelevant of whether you get paid for it, irrelevant of whether it makes you popular, irrelevant of whether people like you? For example, one of the things that I said was, irrelevant of whether I may have thousands of views or millions of views, or I become famous or not, or I become popular. I said I will do my best to try and help men to become higher, fuller expressions of themselves. I said that. And so you guys were watching this. I may have 20 or 10 of you watch this. It really doesn't matter to me, because it doesn't, for me, it is no longer about having thousands or millions of people, which it was at the beginning, watch my videos. Now it's just about, even if I have 5 people watch it and their life in some way is pointed in the right direction, that's enough for me. I'm like, I've done a good job. That is the paradigm and the place from which I now operate my life. The last one that I want to share with you, which men said, is that they said that a man has to be willing to give up his personal desires. In other words, what they were saying is, so I was speaking to my mate, and I said, what did you mean by that? He goes, well, if a man, for example, smokes, but the smoking is a bad influence to his children, even though he loves it, he has to be able to give it up. They would say things like, well, if he has to choose between the lads or his family, he has to give up going with the lads, and instead go with his family and spend time with his family. And I found that really interesting, because I thought most lads would say, nah, go out with the lads, like, chill with them. But apparently, according to what people tell me a real man would never choose to be out with the lads over spending time with his family. And I thought about how many people I know that do not occupy that philosophy. By the way, before I finish this off, I want to share with you one last thing that was probably the single biggest shock thing that shocked me this year. The single biggest shock this year to me, and that I have learned, and which really has surprised me, is that every time I finish asking people to define what a man was, I then ask people, do you think that your dad is what you've just described? And in probably 9 times out of 10, every single person said that their father was not what they've just described. Now that was shocking to me. In other words, these people who I asked this question, about 80 of them said to me that they do not believe. When I asked them to describe what a father is, they said to me, when I asked them to describe what a man was, they said to me that their own father was not what they've just described. Which I found very interesting and very shocking. I don't know what that means for you, but I just wanted to share that with you, because I just thought it was really interesting, and it really challenged me this week to really look at, hold on a minute, have I got any of these qualities? Am I like this? Have I got honor? Am I a guy who looks after himself, and both mentally and physically? I don't know. I wanted to share it with you. Make of it whatever you will. The second thing that I wanted to share with you, which I've been journaling about, is this statement that says, you can't change what you are not aware of. So I have had some really interesting conversations this week. Every week I kind of ask people questions. I ask people questions like, For example, I would say to somebody, would you rather have a dessert or would you rather have a starter? Would you rather know the beginning or would you rather know the end? I ask people these kinds of questions. And whenever I ask people these kinds of questions, people give me an answer, and then usually they do everything in their power to try to convince me why it is that their answer is the correct answer. People try to convince me about, or whenever I speak to people and I say to them, why do people not become successful? Why do you think that so many people are not leaders? Or why do you think some people start from the bottom and they get to the top and some people don't? Usually people give me loads of different answers, but usually they try to persuade me. And what I've come to understand is that many people have identified, as well as myself, that you can't change something which you are not aware you have. And essentially, this is part of the reason why partly I ask people these questions. Because one of my life's goals and missions is to help men, 1 billion men, to become fuller, higher expressions of who they are. And so I use every opportunity to essentially awaken people, to make people more conscious of what they believe, what they stand for, what they are living like, what they believe good is, what they believe bad is. For example, I'm using these journal entries to do the very same thing that I believe I should be doing with the rest of my life. And I've got to be honest with you that every single time I ask people these kinds of questions, people don't know the answers to these questions. People don't know what success is. They can't define it for me. They can't tell me what is good and what's bad. Even to the point where this week, obviously, I've been asking people, what is a man? Define what a man is for me. A lot of people have no idea. I usually have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and wait for the person to really think about the question, and I have to be patient with them, or they will say, I'll come back to you later, and then they come back to me and give me their answer as to what they believe. But I've realized most people have no idea about what they stand for, what they believe in, what is good, what is bad. And the thing that worries me is that we children, the next generation, will model what we've just illustrated for them. In other words, your children, your nephews, your sister's children, your next door neighbor's children are going to be looking at me and you and determining what is good, what is bad, what is a man supposed to be like, what's a woman supposed to be like. How is a man supposed to speak to a woman? Is a man supposed to open the door? Is a man supposed to get in the car before the woman gets in the car? When the couple gets home, is a man supposed to, after they've been shopping, is a man supposed to just go straight into the house, or is he supposed to go and get the shopping for the lady? And most people don't realize that people are watching them all the time and using them either as comparisons of what they should be or shouldn't be. Most of us don't realize that people are looking at us and are figuring out how the world should be based on how we are. Now, you could say, well, Cassim, I can't control what people think about me. I can't control what people get from me. No, you can't. But you can control the perception that people see you as. Let me give you a perfect example of this. So I was working as a manager in Co-op, and I was explaining to a guy one day. I said to Jaden, there was a guy on the checkouts, and I said to Jaden, what do you think about when you're serving customers? What goes through your head? Tell me what runs through your head whenever a customer comes and you're serving them. And he goes, I don't know, nothing. And I said to him, interesting. Here's what I would share with you. When a customer comes next, I want you to have in the back of your head that I am going to make this interaction with this person the best few moments that this person is going to have today. I said, when you are serving the customer, have in the back of your head that my job is to help recognize this person's existence, that this person exists, that this person is seen, that this person is heard, that they matter. Make the person feel special. And Jaden started doing this, and obviously like a week later, people started commenting and telling me how the customers are starting to give such nice compliments and all of this. And Jaden came to me and he was like, Cass, I've had so many nice comments. And I was explaining to him that when you begin to control your intention, when you begin to control the center for which you operate your life, it begins to manifest itself and pour itself outwardly. And a lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people don't get that you have the ability to control whether people see you as an inspiration or as a disease. That people don't want to be like you. Because when people look at you, you're so angry all the time. And you're so quick with your judgments, right? People looking at you and they're using you as a comparison. Let me give you further take this. For example, in my own life, I've made it my obligation to every single time I meet somebody to be an example of what a black person should be like. So whenever I have come into an interaction with somebody, particularly if they're white, they're Chinese, they're Nepalese, they are Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Japanese, I make a conscious decision to say, right, I want this person to know that this is how a black person is. Because I know that the world is telling people all the time what a black person is. So, for example, when I work in, in Tesco's or in Co-op, every time I have to speak to somebody, I ensure I am polite, I'm kind to them, I ask them questions, I say yes, absolutely, I have right pronunciation, because I realize, whether I like it or not, that I am forming in their mind what a black person is like. And I want to ensure that when that person sees something on television that says that black people are like this, I want them in their mind to say, hold on a minute, I know that's what the news are saying, I know that black people do stabbings, I know that the most people who are in prison are black people. Hold on a minute though, but Cassim isn't like that. That young man who I met in Tesco's, that young man that I met in Co-op, hold on a minute, he was very polite, he was very nice, so clearly all the black people are not like that. That is the mindset that I wish and desire for people to operate their life from. My question to you is, are you aware of how people are perceiving you? Are you aware that people are looking at you and you are teaching them how to be a man? You're teaching them how somebody who's a Muslim is like. You're teaching them how somebody who's a Catholic is like. You're teaching them how somebody who's a leader, who's a manager is supposed to behave. Because you realize that, don't you? Whether you realize it or not, you are. And what I want to say to you is, unless you're aware of how you think, of how people perceive you, of how you come across, you might never realize that you're making an impact on people around you, on people who you come in contact with. I don't know. I was just thinking about that, and I just wanted to share that with you because I found it so strong and so useful. The last thing that I wanted to share with you today is this, that I've moved away from trying to be right, and instead I now seek the truth. So I would probably say up until I was probably 27 years of age, my primary goal was to be right. I wanted to be right. And in fact, if I believe something, if me and you came into conversation, my goal was to prove to you that I was right. And in fact, if we go into an exchange, if I believe that City, United, or I believe that Spurs, or I believe that Liverpool were the best football team, if we came into a conversation where we were talking about football, my goal would be to prove to you that my team was better than yours. That I was right and you were wrong. And what I came to realize from this, and this is why I was journaling about this, is because when you come from that space, when you come from that intention, your goal, your intention is not pure. Because what you're really trying to do is that you're trying to belittle the other person. You're trying to make the other person feel inferior. You're trying to tell the other person that they are in some way less than. Their thinking is less than yours. In other words, you're operating from a space of ego, from a place of just a place where I don't even know what the word is, but a place where you don't have the right intention. You're not trying to improve somebody's life or trying to share with somebody or trying to connect with them. What you're really trying to do is that you're trying to prove that you are right. Essentially, it's all about you. And that's why now I've adopted this intention, that my intention isn't to try to prove that I'm right. My intention is to seek the truth. And the reason why I say this is because the truth doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. The truth, it just is. It doesn't matter whether you agree with the truth. It just is the way. For example, we know, for example, that a truth is that if you go on top of a building and you jump off it, you're not going to go up. Now, I may say, well, I disagree with you. Yeah, but Cassim, but if you jump off and there is this or there is that, or you've got a bungee thing behind you, then it'll pull you up. You can kind of have all of that kind of speech. But the reality is, we know that if a person goes and jumps off a freaking tall building, they're never going to go up. Everybody unanimously can agree with that. That is what I now look for. And that's why I no longer, in fact, when I teach these lessons, I now teach only principles. I only teach things that are true for everybody. Because everything else can be debated, it can be argued against. And if I'm trying to persuade you of this or persuade you of that, do you know what? What's the point? It's all about me. I'm trying to get something. My intention isn't to help you. My intention is to prove that I'm right. I've come to realize in life that there are two kinds of truths. There is a truth and there is the truth. Let me explain this. A truth is the interpretation that you've made up about something. So, for example, you could say that if somebody jumps off a building, that they could go up. Okay? You could say that, because of course you could say, well, Cassim, they could have a harness behind them, they could have some kind of engine things that propel them up. So actually it's not really true that they're gonna come down, because it depends on the circumstances. It depends on whether they have a bungee, it depends on the height of the roof, it depends on all different things, right? You could say that. That's a truth. Let me tell you the truth. The truth is incontrovertible. You cannot challenge it. In fact, you can challenge it, but the result will still be the same, whether you have an opinion over it or not. Does that make sense? And so when you try to seek the truth, instead of going for really operating yourself on always opinions and things like facts, because facts change, opinions change. We know that you may have believed that when you were younger, it's a fact that you do not want children. But now you're older, the fact is that you do want children. We know that an opinion might have been when you were younger that anyone who had loads of money was corrupt and fucked up. Now that you're older, you have loads of money and your opinion has changed because your experience has changed, right? And so when you operate, those are all important and they have their place. But what I'm saying to you is, in order for us to have a better connection with other human beings, to have a better world, to create a more evolutionary level of thinking, we have to get to the place where we primarily operate our lives, I believe, from a space of principles, from a place of this is the truth. This is how it is, whether we like it or not, right? And I would encourage you to really refrain from anything that can be disargued. Anything that can be misinterpreted a different way, or somebody can have a grossly opposing view of it, means it's an opinion. It means that it is something which can kind of have different interpretation. It means it's a truth, but not the truth, right? And also, by the way, let me finish this off by saying this. Just because everybody agrees on something, it doesn't mean that it's the truth. Just because somebody goes along and says, yeah, this is the way something should be, it doesn't mean that it's right. Let me give you an example. It was a truth that, I don't know, 120 years ago, slavery was okay. Everybody agreed that it was okay, but it doesn't mean that it's the truth about humanity, about the value of each human life. We know that the truth and not a truth, the truth is that every human being's life is equal in value. We all have different capacity, but our value as human beings is all equal. Your life is not more important than my life. My life isn't more important. The Queen's life is not more important than your own life. Now, a truth of that would be that, well, we would argue, but she has... she's part of royalty. We could say, well, hold on a minute, she has to be the head of state. We could say all that kind of stuff. But that's a truth and not the truth. The truth is that the Queen's life and your life both hold equal value. And I wonder whether you are operating a lot of your life from a space where you believe that, and are operating your life where you believe that things are a truth and not the truth. What places and areas in your life are you operating from a space of a truth and not the truth? What areas of your life are you operating from where you no longer are trying to seek the truth, but you're just trying to prove that you're right? Where things are not working in your life. They no longer support it. They're an opinion and they worked for you 5 years ago, but now that opinion has changed and they no longer serve who you want to become, where you want to go, the philosophy you want to have, the lifestyle you want to hold. And you need to change them, but you still have the mindset that it is the truth when in fact it is a truth. It's a very complicated concept to explain this, but I hope I've articulated it in the right kind of way. So that finishes this week's journal entries. I don't know whether it's been useful for you or not. I'd ask you to like and subscribe to our channel Cassimotive on YouTube if you want to support me. Comment below, tell me lessons that you've learned this week. Have you started your journaling yet? I want to hear from you. Thank you very, very much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye for now.